Hello and welcome to Punk Rock Politics with John Smith. I'm John Smith. I hope everybody's staying safe out there with the COVID-19 spread or the coronavirus. And I hope people are practicing social distancing because I went out in my area in Hazlitt and Union Beach, New Jersey, and some people seem annoyed by it. I let multiple people go in front of me in one of our quick checks, and I waited forever and took extra time while a buddy waited in the car. He was not happy. I was not happy. But I was telling people you're supposed to be 6 feet apart. People limit the amount of people you come in contact with. It's a very serious thing, and it's easy to spread. It lasts a long time. But we're going to get into some important things that deal with the coronavirus and what Congress and the president, but mostly right now what Congress is doing about it. So the House of Representatives and the Senate. But for starters, I'm going to read you an article that I just found by Business Insider that unfortunately doesn't have a date on the article, which is very strange, but I'm going to keep all the links for the articles I read at the bottom of this video. Please share, comment, and like, and make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and either choose all when you subscribe or double click to get the little parenthesis things around the bell so you actually get updates about new videos and information. So anyway, here's an article from Business Insider. It's from Grace Panetta. The title is As Congress Grapples with How to Pay People Affected by the Coronavirus Downturn, This Nonprofit is Giving Americans $1,000 Immediately. So let me just stop real quick and say the whole point of this is I'm going to break down what was being debated in the House of Representatives and the Senate, what it means for you, which is I have family asking me, what does this mean for me? What am I going to get? My father was asking me, am I going to get something? Is anybody, whatever, our family, our friends, neighbors, what's going on with all this? So I'm going to try to break it down the best, but I can, and give you as much information in this video as I can without being too long. So, if you can't watch me, you don't need to. I know I'm very pretty, but you could seriously just listen to it while you're washing dishes, or if you have a speaker hooked up while you're, vacuuming or just doing chores, or by all means look at my pretty face. But seriously, this is a serious thing, but humor is important too. But we're gonna get right into it. So as Congress debates providing American workers with direct cash transfers, one nonprofit is taking matters into their own hands and giving needy Americans cash immediately. The nonprofit organization GiveDirectly is mailing Americans enrolled in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, $1,000 on debit cards, beginning with 200 recipients next week. GiveDirectly's Chief Financial Officer, Joe Huston, said the organization has enough funding to send 200 checks out immediately and hopes to expand the program to help more people. Advocates of direct cash transfers and universal basic income hope that giving cash to the poor as policy becomes less stigmatized and deployed more often as a result of the coronavirus crisis. As congressional leaders debate legislation to provide American workers with direct cash transfers amid the novel coronavirus outbreak, one organization is taking matters into its own hands and piloting a program to give vulnerable Americans $1,000 beginning next week. The novel coronavirus rapid spread has already resulted in thousands of Americans either losing their jobs, getting laid off, or having their hours cut. There are at least 16,000 cases of the virus reported in the U.S. so far, with 213 deaths. I caution you because this article does not have a date, which is Business Insider does on occasion put out some great articles, sometimes not, but sometimes they put out great articles, and like this, and not having a date, I just caution you with those figures. I don't know the figures offhand. They're increasing exponentially, and I believe it's higher than that. I don't know when this exactly came out. It came out recently, but I don't know how recently. But anyway, sorry about that. It's not my fault. I mean, this is Business Insider. Like I said, I'll share the links for all the articles at the bottom of the video. Anyway, I continue. While the travel and hospitality industries were initially hit hardest, workers across the U.S., such as waiters, bartenders, and freelance workers in all industries, are out of work after multiple states are now ordered most public places to close down, including restaurants, bars, movie theaters, concert halls, and gyms. Some economists now estimate that 1 million American workers could lose their jobs in the month of March alone, the Washington Post reported. Already, unemployment insurance claims are surging in multiple states, with a Friday Goldman Sachs report projecting that total unemployment claims are on track to smash an all-time record and could total 2.5 million this week alone. Since 2009, the nonprofit organization GiveDirectly has pioneered a charitable model of direct cash payments to individuals in need, mainly located in the developing world. And now it's stepping in to provide emergency assistance to as many of those workers as possible. On Thursday, the organization announced they are rolling out a program to send Americans enrolled in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, $1,000 loaded on debit cards after the beneficiary gets them in the mail, beginning with 200 recipients next week, no strings attached. The organization is identifying SNAP recipients in coordination with the firm Propel, which develops technology to help SNAP recipients. The operation says that 90% of donations to the Coronavirus Emergency Relief Program will go directly to recipients' pockets, and the remaining 10% to administrative and logistical costs. Let me just stop and say this is amazing what they're doing, and I hope they get a lot of support from people that have the funds. And this is something where government is failing, and nonprofits are stepping in. And this happens all the time, and it shouldn't be that way. We're always going to need nonprofits regardless of government, because there's always going to be slips through the cracks or mistakes or unintended consequences in bills, and just things that government won't come together on and pass that are common sense. Things like if Bernie Sanders is proposing, he's got the best plan to cover this. I was watching tonight. Bernie Sanders was live with Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and also they had a little song performance by somebody called Grandson, I believe. Yeah, Grandson. Anyway. They had a roundtable discussion on the coronavirus. I tried to bring it to you live, but that didn't work out. I'm working out a lot of kinks here and trying to figure out a lot of things and find reliable apps to bring this to you. And every time I get a free trial or use an app, I'm having issues with it. So I do apologize, but I'm working on it. Need some support. So please share, comment, like, subscribe, and consider going to patreon.com/punkrockpolitics and becoming a member. The lowest tier is only $1 a month, and you get all kinds of perks. You could just do it for 1 month, and unfortunately for me, but fortunately for you, you could actually change your mind, I believe, before the first of the month and cancel the payment. But please go on and consider being a patron. In a Friday interview with Insider, GiveDirectly's chief financial officer, Joe Huston, said the organization has enough funding to send $200 debit cards out immediately and hopes to expand the program to help more people, particularly undocumented and elderly Americans who often slip through the cracks of other government relief programs, just like I was talking about, slip through the cracks. Huston told Insider that while the federal government has previously doled out emergency cash assistance before, he was surprised to see so many different lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, ranging from GOP Senator Mitt Romney to Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar, introducing their own direct cash assistance proposals. After passing an initial relief package including emergency sick leave, the GOP-led U.S. Senate is now taking up a proposal to give means-tested cash assistance to most Americans based on 2018 tax returns. Since it's unclear how long it'll take for the details of the legislation to pass and go into effect to start sending out checks, GiveDirectly is stepping in to fill the gap in government action. Advocates of the policy hope that giving cash to the poor become less stigmatized. Former Democratic presidential contender Andrew Yang, who largely ran on making cash transfers a component of the U.S. policy landscape, also celebrated the developments in Congress. Yang rose up from being a little-known presidential candidate to a national sensation, partly because of his unique policy platform, which included a universal basic income program he called the Freedom Dividend. The initiative would give every American adult $1,000 a month, no strings attached. On Monday, Yang said he had been in touch with the White House about devising an emergency cash transfer plan, and that his team was eager to offer our support to make sure this process runs as smoothly as possible. I think he helped a lot, Huston said of Yang. He obviously didn't invent basic income, and he didn't invent cash transfers, but he was at so many Democratic debates talking about basic income and getting that into the forefront. The measures being floated in Congress are temporary cash assistance programs in direct response to the ongoing crisis, as opposed to a fixed permanent policy like Yang's Freedom Dividend. But Huston told Insider he's cautiously optimistic that the current crisis could bring about a long-term shift in U.S. public policy towards direct cash transfers. My hope is that one good impact that could come out of this horrible thing is that we start to go to cash sooner as the tool in the toolbox for how to help people, he said. Huston noted that even though Yang's revival of the national discussion around universal basic income got the most attention, Yang and other candidates helped make direct cash plans more reasonable and achievable by incorporating them into their campaign platforms. Those plans include Senator Kamala Harris's Lift the Middle Class Act, a significant extension of the Earned Income Tax Credit that would give monthly cash payments to middle-class people and families, and Senator Cory Booker's Baby Bonds plan, in which the government would create and contribute to opportunity accounts for children from lower and middle-income families to help make up the wealth gap. Houston argued that in recent years, both GiveDirectly's work in the developing world and in disaster situations and other economic research has produced concrete data-driven evidence to counter common stereotypes that low-income people are irresponsible with money, won't spend it on essentials, and will be even disincentivized from working. Yeah, they're all absurd claims. For decades, many of those same messages have been levied as arguments against social welfare programs, including welfare benefits and SNAP. Indeed, the U.S. Department of Agriculture is currently fighting in federal court to impose work requirements for SNAP recipients that could kick an estimated 700,000 people off the rolls. Instead, GiveDirectly argues that research and track record on both international and disaster relief shows that low-income people themselves are best qualified to directly spend on their own needs instead of having outside organizations spending on their behalf. So much of our conditioning is to start with the assumption that you can't just give people money. Like we even have that aphorism around you should teach a man to fish, not give them a fish. I feel like we've all kind of been conditioned to say like, well, that's not possible, Huston said. And while some Americans must be first inclined to donate to large charitable organizations and wary of giving cash, Huston argued that direct cash is unusually well suited to a devastating all-out economic crisis like the coronavirus. While it's the proximate cause of a medical crisis, the way many of us will be hurt first is economically, that we'll lose jobs or have new childcare costs or other unforeseen costs, Huston said. For the people in need, their needs are very diverse. The advantage of cash is that we can do one thing: get cash to a lot of people and then enable a lot of priorities or fill a lot of gaps for different people. All right, I had to take a pause there. So here's from CNN Politics. Here's what you can expect to get from the government coronavirus relief. Like that word salad I just put out there. It's like I'm Joe Biden, but just he does it a hell of a lot more. By the way, where is that guy? Anyway, and what is he doing for us? Let's see. Here's what you can expect to get from the government coronavirus relief. Analysis by Zachary B. Wolf, CNN. It was updated at 11:45 a.m. Eastern EDT. I'm used to calling it Eastern Standard Time. I forget what EDT stands for. Friday, March 20th, 2020. A version of the story appeared in CNN What Matters newsletter. I guess I have to finish reading it when I was accident. If you want to get it in your inbox, sign up for free here. I won't even comment on that. Anyway, this is the quickest, easiest article I could find that gives you a little idea of how the current relief packages being proposed could help you. So, CNN, we're still at the front end of what government will do to help the people through what could either be a recession or a full-on depression caused by the near-complete economic hiatus everyone hopes will slow or stop the spread of COVID-19. Lawmakers have already passed 2 bills to a deal with the coronavirus outbreak. That's a typo. Not to a deal, to deal with the coronavirus outbreak. I didn't read that wrong, so you know. They're now at work on a much larger third stimulus. On Thursday, Senate Republicans unveiled a $1 trillion proposal. Here's a look at what lawmakers have done so far and what we know about what is under discussion for additional relief. What's already passed. March 4th, vaccine research, aid to state governments. House approves an $8.3 billion bill to drastically ramp up vaccine research, give funding to state health officials, beef up prevention programs, and more. The proposal was several times larger than the original White House request. Several times, excuse me. March 18th, sick leave, family leave. Senate approves a $104 bill that would give direct help to many Americans, including 2-week paid sick leave for ill or quarantine workers. Who gets it? Not everyone. Only people being tested or treated for coronavirus or have been diagnosed with it. Also eligible will be those who have been told by a doctor or government official to stay home because of exposure or symptoms. What does it pay? Payments will be capped at $511 a day, roughly what someone making $133,000 earns annually. Who pays for it? Employers to begin with, but they can then recoup the cost with a federal tax credit. Note, this was originally going to be a more generous benefit for workers, but Republicans in the Senate balked at the effect on business. 2-week paid sick leave for other workers. Who gets it? Workers with family members affected by coronavirus and those whose children's schools have closed. What does it pay? These workers will receive up to 2/3 of their pay, though that benefit is limited to $200 a day. That would cover 2/3 of the typical daily wage of someone earning up to about $75,000 annually. Who pays for it? The same federal tax credit, though employers will have to pay out the benefit up front. Paid family leave. Who gets it? Those whose children's schools have closed. The number of people affected by school closures will run into many millions. Note, this benefit was originally open to those who were tested, diagnosed, being treated, or quarantined for coronavirus, or caring for an affected family member. What does it pay? People who can't work would still receive up to 2/3 of their pay, though that benefit is limited to $200 a day, which is about 2/3 of the typical daily wage of someone earning up to about $75,000 a year. How long does it last? This benefit lasts up to a total of 12 weeks, including 2 weeks of sick leave. Note that many schools could be closed through the end of the year. Who pays for it? Again, businesses on the front end, but they'd be reimbursed through federal tax credits. Here's the fine print. Who's cut out? Employers could exclude healthcare workers and emergency responders from either paid leave provision amid fears of staffing shortages among medical providers. What if employers can't pay? Most of the 35 million Americans work at small businesses don't currently get paid family leave. Small businesses, fewer than 50 employees, can apply for financial hardship waivers from the leave provisions affecting workers whose children are out of school. What about large employers? Companies with more than 500 employers are exempt, but they usually already provide some pared back level of paid leave. Did you hear that? Companies with more than 500 employees are exempt. And this is what both the House of Representatives, run by Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer, he's the minority leader in the Senate, and Mitch McConnell have passed, or put forth. Unbelievable. A lot of people work for companies with more than 500 employees, and why they're exempt is unfathomable. They have more money and more employees, so they should not be exempt, and maybe the people with small businesses should be. Doesn't that make more sense? I guess not for capitalism. Sorry, it's just, even though I already knew it, it's just reading it out loud just really touches home how ridiculous our government is acting in a time of crisis, and that's why I look to people like Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, and others, to actually help all Americans. Anyway, everybody in our borders. This puts us all at... it's the right thing to do, first off, but second of all, it doesn't even matter if you don't agree with it. We could all get sick from anybody being sick, so this is a very serious thing. So who else could this actually help? We're talking about paid sick leave. The leave provisions also benefit part-timers, the self-employed, and those in the gig economy who typically don't have paid sick or family leave. Free testing, food stamps, Medicaid. The bill also includes free coronavirus testing for all Americans, additional funding for Medicaid, and more flexibility for states to provide SNAP benefits or food stamps. It is also temporarily lifting the requirement that certain adults without dependent children work in order to receive food stamps for more than 3 months. What's still on the table? Rebate checks and more. What's being negotiated now is a massive $1 trillion plus stimulus bill. It seems like something will pass. We just don't know what it will be yet. Here's more on the proposals, the most concrete of which came from Senate Republicans Thursday evening. $1,000 checks. The Trump administration, following the lead of Senator Mitt Romney and former Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang, wants to send out one or more $1,000 checks directly to Americans. It is not yet clear if there will be limits on who gets these checks. A Senate proposal suggests up to $1,200 for a person and $2,400 for a couple, $3,000 for a family of 4. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said that under a White House idea, a family of 4 could get up to $3,000 when payments for 2 adults and smaller payments for children are combined. There's precedent for these types of direct payments during the George W. Bush administration in 2001 and during the Great Recession in 2008. Senate GOP would, just so you know, the GOP stands for the Grand Old Party and it means Republicans. So if you ever hear GOP, it means Grand Old Party, it means Republicans. Senate GOP would give slightly bigger checks to far fewer Americans, but Senate Republicans would rather give money to small businesses than individuals. They envision giving $1,200 or $2,400 for couples and $500 for each dependent to people making less than $75,000 and a reduced, this must be a typo, and a reduced among $5 for every 100 for people who make between $75,000 and $99,000. Bailouts for airlines, hotel and travel industries. Airlines have asked for $50 billion, and Trump has expressed a willingness to help them and other travel-related industries. The Senate proposal would give airlines and other affected industries $200 billion in loans. The question is, why would we give, and this is what Bernie Sanders and other people are calling out, why would we give the airline industry money when they're barely operating and don't need to operate because of the coronavirus or have to follow the safety standards or might be completely shut down? For what purpose? I mean, yeah, they should be able to stay open. We're not going to literally hold them to pay their mortgage and watch their business go under. But why aren't we giving the money to the workers in the industry? Why would we give it directly to the industry? Makes no sense, right? All right, so call your senators, call your congressmen, call your state representatives, and just demand everybody in government, do the right thing and make sure that these aren't big corporate bailouts for everybody. Okay, conditions for aid, government equity stakes. On Thursday, Trump expressed interest in the U.S. government taking ownership stakes in companies that had engaged in stock buybacks and other schemes. The government did not take ownership stakes in U.S. banks and sold ownership stakes it took in auto companies after it bailed them out a decade ago. Trump's endorsement is an off-brand take for Republicans, so it'll be interesting to see if it gains steam. Again, this is an idea that came from Bernie Sanders and somewhat from Elizabeth Warren as well. And some of the, actually no, in fairness, she definitely was putting forth these proposals as well. Bernie Sanders is really putting out a ton of stuff. It's great to watch. He's very serious about the coronavirus. There's already been over $2 million raised from his army of the largest ever to exist for a president. His army of donators who have given money to people being affected by the coronavirus. If you can afford to give, please do so. You can check it out. I'm sure it's on BernieSanders.com. He sends text messages if you're already a contributor. Anyway, so aid for small businesses. It's the small and neighborhood businesses, along with the travel industry, that might be hit hardest by the slowdown. The Senate proposal would give $300 billion in bridge loans to them. Who is writing this bill? It's clear that Senate Republicans forced to gag, this is a quote from Mitch McConnell, and the majority leader in the Senate, the Republican majority leader, and allow the paid family leave proposal to pass, are taking a more active approach in shaping this bill. Democrats like Senator Chuck Schumer have complained they are being cut out of the process. While Republicans are writing the proposal, Democrats have their own ideas. Schumer described a massive ramping up of help for the unemployed. $1,000 goes by pretty quickly if you're unemployed. In contrast, expanded unemployment insurance, beefed up employment insurance, covers you for a much longer time and will provide a much bigger safety net, he said on the Senate floor. It can be hard for Congress to physically vote on anything. Several members have tested positive for COVID-19, and there is a push for something unprecedented in U.S. history, remote voting. White House action. The Trump administration has a lot of power to help affected Americans. Late penalties will be waived for most tax filers. HUD, or the Housing and Urban Development, will halt some foreclosures. What's going on in states? Just to get back to the foreclosures thing, with the live stream roundtable that Bernie Sanders did tonight, and you could watch it after it's over. I'm sure it's over by now, but it went on for quite some time. And again, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez spoke after Bernie Sanders spoke. Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, they all spoke on all the issues affecting their different congressional districts. So New York City, Detroit, and was it Michigan? I'm sorry, Detroit and Minnesota. Bernie Sanders talks more on a national tone because, he's a senator from Vermont, but he's running for president, so I don't believe he touched too much on what was going on in Vermont specifically, but I'm sure he has plenty. He's doing a lot for all of us and fighting for sensible bills to help us all. So they all are. So definitely pay attention and keep, join up for BernieSanders.com and on different social media sites and follow and see what he has to say, because this is very serious and we need somebody to act presidential, and he's doing that. He's definitely acting far more presidential than Joe Biden and Donald Trump in a lot of ways. And I'm not saying Donald Trump hasn't done anything right, but he's under a lot of pressure and he wants to win re-election, and he's conforming to a lot of ideas that are being pushed by Bernie Sanders. He's just watering them down or not doing them properly in a lot of cases. So in some cases he's doing the right thing, but it's all like smoke and mirrors. But we'll get into that later on. I'm going to be releasing a lot of videos about this, so please stay tuned. I'm going to do some tonight. I know it's late, but I had a lot going on, and I'm trying to figure some stuff out, but I'm just going to keep releasing videos, and I'll probably share them all tomorrow. But I hope you guys tuned in and watched, and I hope you share, comment. Please subscribe to my channel on YouTube, Punk Rock Politics channel, and please go to patreon.com/punkrockpolitics and become a member, become a patron. Start as little as $1 a month. Come on, you can do it. You can help make something great. And inform yourself. Anyway, so what's going on in states? Emergency workers, grocery clerks. In Minnesota, grocery store workers have been classified as essential employees and granted free childcare. Banning foreclosures. California's governor is allowing local governments to temporarily halt foreclosures related to coronavirus. Notice this is foreclosures, meaning on homes. What about rent? Another thing that was talked about in the live stream, I believe Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, brought it up, and she's absolutely right. Most millennials and Gen Zers, we can't afford to pay rent. We either live with family. We can't afford to get a mortgage. Excuse me. We live with family, and friends, or we share an apartment and rent. So where's the relief for those generations? Anyway, unemployment benefits. Some states are waiving 1 week waiting periods and relaxing certain rules to make it easier for their newly jobless residents to access these funds. It says clarification. The story has been updated to reflect the current proposed income threshold for payments under a GOP stimulus plan and to add context on the U.S. bailout for auto companies during the Great Recession. All right, so that's another article there. I got one more for you about what's been going on recently. And now we're going to read another article from the Associated Press. And just to be clear, it's 9:44 p.m. as I'm recording this currently right now, just to give you an idea if you're curious. It says also, because it's relevant to this article, it says so it's the Associated Press. It says as crisis deepens, congressional rescue deal teeters by Andrew Taylor, Jonathan Lemire, and Lisa Mascaro. This was an hour ago. That's Washington, AP. Top-level negotiations between Congress and the White House teetered Sunday over a now nearly $2 trillion economic rescue package as the coronavirus crisis deepened. The nation shut down, and the first U.S. senator tested positive for the disease. As President Donald Trump took to the podium in the White House briefing room and promised to help Americans who feel afraid and isolated as the pandemic spreads, the Senate voted against advancing the rescue package. But negotiations continued on Capitol Hill. I think you'll get there. To me, it's not very complicated. We have to help the worker. We have to save the companies, Trump said. We're enduring a great national trial, and we will prove that we can meet the moment. We're at war. At the otherwise emptied out Capitol, the draft aid bill was declared insufficient by Democrats, who argued it was tilted toward corporations and did too little to help workers and healthcare providers. The setback sent Republicans back to the negotiating table. With a population on edge and shell-shocked financial markets poised for the new work week, doubts emerged about the fate of an agreement that would provide some relief against health and economic crises that are likely to stretch for several months. Americans don't need to see us haggling endlessly, warned Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican from Kentucky, his voice rising on the Senate floor. He sought passage of the package by Monday. But Democrats say the largely GOP-led effort does not go far enough to provide health care and unemployment aid for Americans and fails to put restraints on a proposed $500 billion slush fund for corporations. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer, New York, Democrat New York, said the draft package significantly cut back our hospitals, our cities, our states, our medical workers, and so many others needed in this crisis. While the congressional leaders worked to send help, alarms were being sounded from coast to coast about the wave of coronavirus cases about to crash onto the nation's health system. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, who also ran as a presidential candidate in 2020 on the Democratic ticket, no longer obviously, but New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio had dire, urgent news from the pandemic's U.S. epicenter. April and May are going to be a lot worse, he said on NBC's Meet the Press. De Blasio all but begged Washington to help procure ventilators and other medical supplies. He accused the president of not lifting a finger to help. Trump urged Congress to get a deal done, and during the Sunday briefing responded to criticism that his administration was sluggish to act. He cited his cooperation with the three states hardest hit, New York, Washington, and California, and invoked a measure to give governors flexibility in calling up the National Guard under their control while the federal government covers the bill. But even as Trump stressed federal-local partnerships, some governors, including Republican Greg Abbott of Texas, expressed unhappiness with Washington's response. The president himself took a swipe hours earlier at Governor J.B. Pritzker, Democrat of Illinois, saying that he and a very small group of certain other governors, together with fake news, should not be blaming the federal government for their own shortcomings. This case, as the first senator, Republican Rand Paul of Kentucky, announced he tested positive for the coronavirus. Paul, who was a doctor and close ally of the president, said in a tweet he was not showing symptoms and was in quarantine. Paul was seen at a GOP senator's lunch on Friday and swimming in the Senate gym pool on Sunday morning. His office said he left the Senate immediately after learning his diagnosis. A growing list of lawmakers have cycled in and out of isolation after exposure, and 2 members of the House have said they tested positive. 5 senators were in self-quarantine Sunday evening. In recent days, Trump invoked the Defense Production Act, a rarely used, decades-old authority that can be used to compel the private sector to manufacture needed medical supplies like masks and ventilators. Officials said Sunday that it would be used voluntarily and businesses would not be compelled to act. I'm almost in awe hearing that. So this is me talking, obviously. If you're just listening and not watching, Sanders was pushing him to do this, by the way. He's putting out videos last night saying we need to invoke this. So he's doing it, but not really using it. He said it's voluntary, so that doesn't make any sense. So you're not invoking it. It's what we did in World War II to win the war and to build the biggest middle class on top of the New Deal. The New Deal was definitely, and then the New Deal by Truman, and then the 91% corporate tax rate by Republican Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was president from 50 to 58. Those things all built the biggest middle class ever, and we're nowhere near that corporate tax rate, and we're fighting over small nothings when we should be taking this seriously and should have been taking it seriously before the coronavirus. All the crises we have, healthcare, environmental, income inequality, and the list just goes on and on and on and on and on. And this is just exposing it all in your face and making people become more educated about politics, about economics, about environment, and caring and fighting for what they need because it's affecting them personally. I hope in the future we do not wait until crises unfold and hit us the hardest to act, because it's not how you form a decent society, and that's not how you survive. Anyway, a growing list of moral. I'm sorry. I just was. So the Defense Production Act, like I was saying, that Bernie Sanders was pushing the president to use, is, again, a rarely used, decades-old authority that can be used to compel means force, essentially, the private sector to manufacture needed medical supplies like masks and ventilators. But they're saying that it's going to be voluntary and business will not be compelled to act. So he's invoking it to trick you. He's invoking it because that's what you should do, and you should actually compel businesses that are very profitable, to help and to produce these things. And you should compel smaller businesses that might be able to help, but compensate them. We don't need to compensate businesses that are making extreme profits for CEOs and top executives while they pay their workers garbage. Like, that's not what we should be doing. But nonetheless, he's not doing any of it, so he's trying to trick people. So just be aware of what your president's saying versus what is actually happening. Please stay informed and call him on it. Call the White House. You could do that. I hope you know that. Tweet to Donald Trump on Twitter at Real Donald Trump, or whatever it is, the Real Donald Trump, one of the two. But tweet to all of them. Nancy Pelosi is not stepping up to the plate. Chuck Schumer, put pressure on these people. On social media, call, email, write a letter. Try to use recycled paper, please, or recycled products if you can. But nonetheless, get that stuff to them. Put pressure on them. As we should always do, by the way, to get what we deserve. But now even more than ever. Okay. We are a country not based on nationalizing our business, said Trump, who has repeatedly railed against socialism overseas and among Democrats. Call a person over in Venezuela. Ask them how did nationalization of their businesses work out. Not too well. That's a very big pile of nonsense, and I've personally studied what's been going on in Venezuela in college and fairly recently. And all I gotta say is it's a bunch of nonsense. The economy was run mostly on oil, almost exclusively, and that was the problem. But they also have more freedoms than us. They have participatory democracy, and so local towns control the budget they get from the federal government and can vote on it, like having more democracy. And there's a lot of and they have a way more extensive constitution. They have like a lot more amendments to their constitution. Their constitution provides a lot more for people, including like just one I can remember off the top of my head was like women who stay home to raise children or do housework are still guaranteed to get to get money from the government. That's just one example. I won't get into all. And Chavez, we don't forget we have like attempted to overthrow their government in 2019 numerous times, and we overthrew Chavez's government, Hugo Chavez, the predecessor to Nicolas Maduro, numerous times, and it failed because he was so popular. So let that sink in for a minute. So don't listen to this nonsense about Cuba and Venezuela without them really saying anything. It's just to scare you. It's a scare tactic. It's fear. Especially with the kind of government we have in place, and if there was proper oversight in the bills, obviously socialist policies are way better than capitalist policies. This is proving it. But anyway, I digress, but that was important to dissect. So don't worry, I'm going to finish reading this article and I'm going to say a few things and it's over. But this is all very important, so I want to give you information, and when it's necessary, I want to, provide a backdrop for some of the things being said. The president tweeted Sunday, because they're not in this article, that's the point, they're letting them get away with that. Anyway, in a lot of the mainstream press. Anyway, the president tweeted Sunday that automakers General Motors and Tesla were given the go-ahead to make ventilators and other products, but no automaker is anywhere close to making medical gear such as ventilators and remains months away, if not longer. Nor do the car companies need the president's permission to move forward. 2 days after he lashed out at a reporter who asked about his message to frightened Americans, Trump said, "For those worried and afraid, please know as long as I am your president, you can feel confident that you have a leader who will always fight for you." It's kind of a shitty impression, but why not? We need some humor, right? But minutes later, when he learned that rival Senator Mitt Romney, Utah, was one of those in isolation, he declared, "Romney's in isolation. Gee, that's too bad." Unbelievable. I'm not a fan of Mitt Romney for a lot of reasons. His venture capitalism, just his business. But that doesn't mean that I want him to die. And I would make a public statement as president mocking him and like laughing that he had coronavirus. That's just, wow. Anyway. Oh, and by the way, obviously Romney was right on impeachment. And that was one noble thing he definitely did in the face of whatever. Just the whole Senate just taking that thing as a joke and selling out. Anyway, the whole Senate GOP. Trump said he was not being sarcastic. He also, at one moment, incongruously complained about the lawsuits and scrutiny has faced in his short political career, saying, "I think it's very hard for rich people to run for office." It should be. Maybe it should be, I won't say that. The urgency to act is mounting as jobless claims skyrocket, businesses shutter, and the financial markets are set to reopen Monday, eager for signs that Washington can soften the blow of the healthcare crisis and what experts say is a looming recession. Stock futures declined sharply as Trump spoke Sunday evening. Officials late Sunday put the price tag of the ballooning rescue package at nearly $2 trillion. That does not include additional measures being taken by the Federal Reserve to shore up the economy. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, who is leading a third day of nonstop talks on Capitol Hill, said the plan was meant to prop up the nation's weakened economy for the next 10 to 12 weeks. Mnuchin said workers and businesses will get assistance to help cover payrolls for the next 10 weeks, unemployment insurance, and a one-time bridge payment of about $3,000 for a family of four. Hospitals, he said, will get approximately $110 billion for the expected influx of sick patients. It's not that much money, actually, $110 billion, given what's going on. And we can print money, people. So don't let them tell you, worry about the debt. That's a misnomer, and it's not how economics works. Japan, again, prints 3 times more money than us and has a way more fair and equal society and a more economically equal, populace. Like they have, there's not the level of income inequality that we have, and they print 3 times as much money as us. Investment in the economy helps grow the economy. It's kind of common sense. So don't let them lie to you. Don't even take my word for it. Please do research. But it's just, these are like economic facts. And unfortunately, a lot of colleges don't do their job teaching economics properly and take out basic factors like how much natural resources a nation has. don't even include that in the equation. So there's a lot of shady stuff that goes on, and our education system needs serious reform. But I digress. Let's get back to this article and get you punk rockers or you just regular people, get you back to what you're doing and give you the information you need in a scary time. The Treasury Secretary said a significant part of the package will involve working with the Federal Reserve for up to $4 trillion of liquidity to support the economy with broad-based lending programs. But Democrats have pushed for add-ons, including food security aid, small business loans, and other measures for workers, saying the 3 months of unemployment insurance offered under the draft plan was not enough. They wanted the draft plan's $500 billion for corporations. They warned the draft plan's $500 billion for corporations does not put enough restraints on business, saying the ban on corporate stock buybacks is weak and the limits on executive pay are only for 2 years. We're not here to create a slush fund for Donald Trump and his family or a slush fund for the Treasury Department to be able to hand out to their friends, said Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. We're here to help workers. We're here to help hospitals. The president, when pressed by a reporter, dodged a question as to whether his own business would seek federal funds. He also said, unlike his predecessors at times of national crisis, he would likely not call any past presidents for advice, saying, I don't think I'm going to learn much. The details are coming from drafts of both bills circulating among lobbyists but not yet released to the public. They were obtained by the Associated Press. For most people, the new coronavirus causes only mild or moderate symptoms, such as fever and cough. For some, especially older adults and people with existing health problems, it can cause more severe illness, including pneumonia. The vast majority of people recover from the new virus. According to the World Health Organization, people with mild illness recover in about 2 weeks, while those with more severe illness may take 3 to 6 weeks to recover. Bev Banks contributed. Associated Press writers Colleen Long, Hope Yen, Mary Claire Jelinek, Ricardo Alonso Zaldivar, Alan Fram, and Padmananda Rama contributed to this report. The Associated Press receives support for health and science coverage from the Howard Hughes Medical Institute's Department of Science Education. The AP is solely responsible for all content. All right, people. There's a lot to unpack there, and I gave some. I gave you some insight. I'm gonna sign off, and I'm gonna upload this. This is a pretty lengthy. This is one of my lengthier videos. I hope that helped you understand some of what's going on. I'm gonna keep doing some research and put out more videos. So please stay tuned, especially if you don't know what's going on politically or what it means for you or what is the right thing versus the wrong thing to do. Politically, I will be here to guide you. And please share the video. Please subscribe to this channel. And please stay safe. Practice social distancing. Please, seriously, and not enough people are doing it. It's putting us all at risk. This is a stressful time for all of us. So stay home, stay safe, wash your hands all the time. I have a nurse in New Jersey, locally, who works with cancer patients for chemotherapy. Obviously, that's crucial. She is telling me anytime you touch a hard surface to wash your hands. Now, I always wash my hands quite a lot, but every time I touch the hard surface, that's even more OCD than, she said be super OCD about it. I was always just clean. People call OCD when you wash your hands a lot, but people are dirty and things are dirty. You can get sick. So I'm a little bit better about this than some, but still, it's very hard to avoid touching. They say every time you touch a door handle or a door or a counter. So keep everything clean as much as you can. Use soap if you have it, or hand sanitizer. I will say one thing. Obviously, Bernie Sanders was saying tonight, he's absolutely correct. We should make it illegal to gouge prices. Nobody should be able to sell toilet paper or much needed goods to vulnerable people for large sums of money. It should be illegal. We should make it illegal right now. Gouging prices for much needed goods, especially during a crisis, is wrong. It's wrong all the time, but it's really wrong now. So people, like my dad was telling me, they were for 2 bottles of hand sanitizer, they were charging $200 on Amazon. I heard some things, but nothing's being done about it. So call your White House, call your senators, call your congressmen, and definitely put more pressure on Mitch McConnell, the leader of the Senate Majority Leader. Put more pressure on Chuck Schumer, the Minority Leader, the Democratic Minority Leader. Put more pressure on Nancy Pelosi, the Democratic Speaker of the House, and Kevin McCarthy, who's the Minority Leader in the House, and all of these people in power who decide what bills get, put forth, whether they're debated, whether there's amendments allowed. That's not even a democratic system. It should not be like that. They have a lot of power. You put pressure on them and you'll get results. So call them, tweet them, look up their Twitter handles online. At the things that say at Speaker Pelosi, but it might say Pelosi SPKR. I don't know, but that's why you can look it up and you can find these important people's Twitter handles and then tweet to them your concerns and what you think should be done. Thank you for watching. Again, please go to Patreon, patreon.com/punk rock politics, and please become a patron today. Support Punk Rock Politics so I can bring you guys much more content. I'm already doing a lot for a new channel, but I need to do a lot more. And I would be doing multiple videos a day, every day. And I would be doing many live streams of important events. Support means that I can get the apps I need to, have the articles pop up on the screen and be able to live stream events quickly. When I find out, like tonight, I found out that Bernie Sanders was doing a roundtable about the coronavirus only 30 minutes before, unfortunately, is when I got the alert. And I didn't have time to set everything up and didn't have the space on my tablet to download all these things and figure everything out. So it's a lot. It's really involved. But I'm working really hard to get people important information. Stay safe out there. Practice social distancing. Stay 6 feet away from each other. Thanks for staying in there through all this, and I really hope this helps. And my heart goes out to anybody affected by the coronavirus, and their families, their friends, people that suffer, people that are suffering, people that have passed. So please, everybody, stay safe. It's for all of our good. Everybody's good. Thanks. Oh, just want to add one more thing in case you're still watching. We need to get Medicare for all to every single person, at least during the crisis. We need to give it to every single individual within our borders, or we're all at risk. We need to make sure everybody has money, or we're all at risk. If you don't have money and you can't eat, it breaks down your immune system, you're more likely to get sick. These are things that we should have already been doing, but they're crucial during this crisis. So make sure your voice is heard, and make sure your government knows that we expect a way more serious response to coronavirus and a lot more money, a lot more spending. The government's got it. It's not going to come back and bite you. All right? We should be printing a lot more money than we already are, and we should have been helping get rid of this awful economic inequality and dealing with the climate crisis, which only exacerbates things like this. Okay. Thanks again. Thanks for joining Punk Rock Politics. See you guys in a bit.